Hi everyone, it's Braylon and welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, then you probably don't know about my school year. One thing is that I will be teaching in person, but I have one, maybe two students who will be online. And so I do have to kind of figure out how I'm going to teach virtually and kind of set the whole system up. I've received so many questions, but basically there have been so many of you that have reached out. You're first year teachers, you're about to start teaching remotely, and honestly, it's super overwhelming. So this video is probably going to be very long, but I want to take the time and outline a lot of the things that I'm going to be using for virtual learning this year. The platform, I want to show you an example of my classroom website and how I'm going to build it. There are so many amazing tutorials on the different platforms that I'm not going to go into too much depth. One thing that I will do is in the description below, I'm going to leave a link to how to use Seesaw, how to use Nearpod, how to use Google Classroom, and how to use Google Sites, because I think that those other tutorials give like a really like in-depth view of how to set all of that up. But I do want to talk about them in this video because I think all of those platforms are amazing and I think they can help you in totally different ways. So I want to talk through some of the pros and the cons of the different types of programs, at least from my perspective of working with students with a lot of different needs, that there are some really good programs and some of them have really good features, and then sometimes they can get a little bit tricky. So I think that the most straightforward and free and accessible option is using Google. All of those have the capability of connecting to each other. So if you have a Google website, you can connect it right to your Google Classroom. In your Google Classroom, you can make different activities, whether that's in Google Slides where the pieces are movable, they kind of operate like a task, or in Google Classroom, you can embed a YouTube video because YouTube is connected to Google. And so it gives you a lot of those options. I think the downside of it is that it's definitely not as engaging when it comes to students with disabilities. Is just not super exciting. And so you'll see later on in this video, I am going to use Google Sites, and sometimes I do use Google Slides, but overall I think there are some other different platforms that have more engaging lessons and engaging elements. The free option that you can make yourself and you can tailor it specific to each kid is to use Google Slides. Now, in order to use Google Slides, the students have to stay in this mode. They can't go into present mode. They have to stay in edit mode. I actually added right here, I added these visuals. So first that my student needs to do his math, and then he can take a break. And there's the break image that we use, and they need to sequence. So they're going to click the 1 and they're going to move the 1 up. Then there's 2. There's so many free activities like this that are on Teachers Pay Teachers file folders, or honestly, you can make your own. Just make your own ones. They work just as well. The next one is Seesaw, and I actually had a couple of my friends use Seesaw and they really love it. I think the one thing about Seesaw that's not so good, I'll start with that one, is that it's not Google. So it is connected to Google, like you can connect it to all of the Google apps, and that makes it really great, but it is an outside separate website. That means you need a separate login. So if you're hosting everything on Google and then you want to link to a Seesaw, Seesaw kind of operates the same. It has different classrooms embedded. You can have different students. You can assign activities, but students will need to be able to log into that. And so it's just an additional step for students and families. But I have to say that I love Seesaw. And the reason I love it is because the activities are a little bit more interactive and more engaging. You could create, oh, it's so cool. You can literally create like an interactive activity out of anything. You can make it like a worksheet activity, and then you can have students drag answers onto the worksheet. or you can have them highlight so they can do tracing and writing activities. It's actually super interactive. And so I personally love Seesaw, but I totally understand the teachers that don't want to have students toggle back and forth between Google and Seesaw, Google and Seesaw. First, I want to show you Seesaw. Seesaw is really exciting to me because you assign these, which can be made by you, or they have this entire library of free activities that you can add to your Seesaw. So for example, I assigned this to a student and the assignment is doing different letter sounds. So I can play this instruction recording.
Click the add button. Move the pictures to match the beginning sound.
So you can record yourself speaking the directions, or you can actually record a video of the directions, which is super cool. So I'm going to add my response, and let me go as my student 1. So here I am in this interactive activity. Now I get to look for the beginning sounds. So if I'm looking for S's, I can click and drag their beginning sounds, and so it's embedded within the whole program, and that makes it really, really cool. The other one I want to show you is this number tracing. It's the exact same thing, but I really like this for this writing time because my students can click, they can either have a pen or they could have, what is this? A highlighter. And so we're going to start tracing. We're going to trace the oh my gosh, I did not do a good job. I mean, that's a 0, haha. And then a 1, and then a 2. And so it kind of mimics the activities that I would give them in the classroom. One of my favorites, not that I'm trying to like sway you, but I would say one of the best things you can do in your classroom is use Boom. I think that remote learning and Boom work so well together. I will say the downside first, and it's similar to Seesaw, is that it is a separate login. So for Boom Learning, the pros is that it's basically just a website for tasks. And if you're in special ed, you're gonna need those. And the best thing about Boom is that it tracks for you. So it provides your data. And I think that that's so key when you're doing remote learning, especially for a lot of you that are supposed to be still somehow hitting all of your IEP goals and tracking data the same way you would in a classroom. You can use Boom. So assigning different decks, and the kids can go through and do all of the activities. It's beautiful. The other option that we talked about was Boom cards, and so I just want to show you a couple of those. I want to mute this. It asks how many pepperonis did I have on the pizza. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I click the 4 and I move on to the next activity. And so it graphs it for me. I want to talk about Nearpod for a second because it was not something that I used last year, but my school is planning on using it this year, and we've been doing a lot of trainings, and oh my gosh, if you can get a Nearpod account and you can do some of their free live webinars, it'll blow your mind. So really quick, I am here at my desk, and I want to show you a fake website that I'm going to create and how I'm going to do it. So I am going to be using Google Sites, and my plan for this is that this website is like a doc. It's like the one place that everybody can go to, and from there they can get all of their lessons, and they'll be able to click on images that will bring them either to a Zoom call or it'll bring them to a lesson, and that way it'll be really seamless for them. Sometimes they're going to click on an image and it's going to take them to a Google Doc, which then they'll be able to access links from there. I mean, it just all depends on the different parts, but I kind of want to show you all that's possible with it. So I want to show you guys this fake classroom. I've made a bunch of pages here. I'm going to add an additional page. But it's really simple to add different pages when you're on Google Sites, and I really love the look of it because it's super simple. So here is my home page. I'm actually going to upload this banner that I made, and I'm going to add it to every other page as well. So on my home page, I'm really working hard to make sure that this is like the hub. This is like where they can find everything. So the first thing I'm going to look at is, what do I want to add to this page? So here I'm actually going to add like a welcome sign, essentially. Sorry, I can't spell. I'm going to add a welcome to class. You know, I'm so excited that they're here. I want it to just be clear and the first thing that they see when they log on. This is actually going to be linked back to that Meet the Team page. So here I'm actually going to upload, I don't know, it's an example, and I'll upload a picture of my own face, but I need something that the parents will be able to click on so that they can go to our Meet the Team head page. There you go. I'm just giving some of the directions, and then you can link anything you want with that little link button. And so it's really, really simple. So below this, I do want to add another element. I want to add links to the other parts of this website, so the other pages as well. So I'm actually going to make something right here so I can link to the class schedule, which is very, very important. I also want to link to Zoom and how to use Zoom and how to log on to Zoom, Nearpod, and Seesaw. I already pre-made these images, but I'm telling you right now, you can make super, super simple images in Canva, which is free. You can make them in PowerPoint, or you can buy them from Teachers Pay Teachers. You actually don't even have to make images. You can just add text. But for my students, they're really not able to read, so this is the best option for them. I actually ended up not having my Nearpod photo, so I totally apologize for that. But again, I can link these to the pages that are needed, and it just makes it really, really simple for parents to access. So I'm on the Meet the Team page, and this is important for me, I think, because for remote learning, they're not always going to know what my face looks like, especially if they're new students. And for me, this is my first year really at this school. They don't know me, they don't know my face, nothing. So I'm adding the different team members, and I think this is like so important. And especially if you have paras and they're working with you remotely, like this is so key because they're working their butts off and they need recognition. These are not my real paras. This is going to be the real me, but Miss C is my best friend Cassie, so we'll add her as a fake para. And then we'll add also Mr. Martin, which is just my brother. I just needed their photos and I knew they would be okay with me using them. So there's my team, my fake team on my website. But I think this is so key because if I'm not teaching, since I'll be teaching in person, then that way they'll know the faces of my paras. This class schedule is the most important thing. So my dream for this is that I have everything here, and so all the parents have to do is come and click on either the picture or click on the title, and it brings them directly to what they need to do. So for this morning meeting, I already had the images made, but basically I'm uploading this image, and when the parents are going to see this website, I'm going to have links attached to everything. They're either going to be Zoom links, and I highly suggest you make a recurring Zoom link. So as every single day they can click on the exact same link and it's going to bring them to the same meeting, because you never want parents to keep texting you like, where's the link? Where's the link? So these two links are going to stay the same every time, my morning meeting and our class lesson. So my plan is to do a couple class lessons, and they're not going to be very long because students cannot participate for that long, but it's still helpful for me to have the link right there. I might do a read aloud one day, I might do science the next day, and that's going to count for my lessons altogether. But to be honest, I can't do a ton of them. Down here, I have reading, math, and writing. And so you're going to see I'm also going to add my images really quickly. These are my special images. I just made them real fast. This is my academic time. So these are not going to be synchronous. For my classroom, that's just not doable. Every kid is at a different level. These are self-paced. So I might link this image to a boom card deck. I might link this image to a Nearpod lesson, but I want them to be done at their own time. So I'm actually going to add my title really fastly above, and it's going to say, probably going to say something about academics and that they need to complete them on their own time. The whole point of this is that they do have IEP goals they have to meet, and I do need data, But if I use Boom, if I use Nearpod, if I'm using even Google Classroom or Seesaw, Seesaw's one of my favorites, they do give me data because it shows me what the kids got right, what they got wrong, how they performed, and I can translate all of that into data. And so data honestly is much better when it is asynchronous than when it is synchronous. And I do recommend that if you're doing a synchronous lesson, that you have paras there as well, or another staff member who can take the proper data for you so you can focus on teaching. So I do love having this. So I usually will keep those the same. The kids can choose maybe between 2 or 3 different activities. And then each week I'll change them out. So this next part is tasks and file folders. So it's a little bit different than Nearpod because those are a bit more like interactive. These are like traditionally what you would picture that you would be doing in my classroom. You would be doing tasks, you would be doing group lessons, and all of that. So for my school, we have half days on Wednesdays, so I know this is different for everyone else, but I'm actually going to label these by day. So the whole point for me is to keep this website and this whole page up for a whole week, so I don't have to do as much work day to day. I pre-make my lessons. I batch lessons, honestly. I batch them. I do like 2 weeks worth of lessons at a time, and I have them all set up. So here on that Monday, if they click, then it'll either bring them to like a Google Doc that they can click on their appropriate link or some sort of page. So on Monday, they'll click and say John and Jake and Aaron are all clicking on Monday. They go to their special file folders for the day and they're good to go. And honestly, you can link it to any platform that you want because I know everybody's doing something different. But this is what they would do in their independent workstation. And I think it's really helpful because they can work on it for a little bit, then they can leave and they don't have to find the link again. They just come back to the website, click on Monday and get started again. And so they can complete it any time during the day because you never know how parents are, maybe they have to work for a little bit. But this is honestly the most helpful thing for me. So this class schedule, even though it's a special ed room and everybody's doing something different, my goal was for it to be as simple as possible for them to be able to click on Miss Martin's lesson, on the morning meeting, and it's honestly, I just wanted it to be as straightforward as I can get it. This last part on Zoom, I will put videos of, how to access Zoom for parents, how to access Nearpod, how to access Seesaw. Sometimes I make videos myself of how they can do it, and I provide them with all their login codes so that it's easy for them to access. I also want to make sure to talk about data collection because it's so important. I think in a special ed classroom, we're taking data all the time. When it's digital or virtual learning, I feel like we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break and realize that we're not going to be able to collect data the exact same way. Some of the things that I've been doing, so if parents are totally willing, then you can kind of train them, even if you meet with them for like 10 minutes one day and kind of train them on how they can collect their own data for their kids and then share it with us. And you can explain that it's helpful for us because we need it in order to see what progress they're making so we can be as specific as possible in deciding what they're going to learn for the next week. One thing that the team has been doing with me is when we have our whole group calls, we actually have different paras taking different information and different data. So if the teacher is leading it, then the paras are observing. And a lot of times actually my paras will lead it and I will observe and collect data just on how kids are attending. I might take just quick snippets of data on whether they're engaging, if they're looking at the camera, honestly, if they're singing along to the songs, whatever it may be. A pro tip is that if you're leading a session on Zoom or Google Meet, make sure that another person is on the call with you and have that person share their screen. Because if you are leading it, you're going to be able to see all the faces and you won't have to worry as much about, sharing all the screen and making sure you have all the pieces. You just want to be able to talk and look at the faces without having to do all the background work. So that's a pro tip. I would say also really utilize those Google Docs and those slides and boom cards and Seesaw, because they give you information about, you know, what the child completed, and then you're able to kind of take that, and then from the answers they give, you can turn that into data as well. Obviously, it's going to be a very, very different school year. We're not being held to the same expectation, and so we can only do what we can do. And if that's taking data 2 times a week, then that's all we can do. If that's assigning a few things, then honestly, that's all we can do. And virtual learning and in-person learning are not the same, and they do not require the same amount of face-to-face time. I think finding ways that you can incorporate similar elements of what you've used in your classroom to what you're going to use in virtual learning is also really important, because it's just more helpful for the seamless transition for students. If you're doing file folder games and you're doing lessons where there's songs and activities, and when you're having cut and paste activities but having them be virtual, those things look familiar and they might engage them a little bit more. Like I said, I don't want to tell you exactly what to use, but I did kind of want to go through the different options that I feel like are best for students with disabilities, because this is such a hard time and a really tricky task to try and figure out how we're going to engage learners through a computer screen. So I hope something in this video was helpful for you. I know it's a lot of information, but I think that if you can see as much visually as possible, maybe it will be helpful. You guys are awesome, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye!